So the other day I was doing my usual 4Ds, which is depression, diners, drive-ins and dives, when I thought, what if Guy Fieri was a Lovecraftian monster? Seems silly and on-brand enough, so let's create a scene around that. So the idea was to emulate one of those Lovecraft artworks, where we have this person taking in this cosmic figure, normally around a body of water. So the plan is to have Guy appearing from the depths, scaring a local fisherman. So I'll create a small water scene with a resin pour lake. So let's get started on the sculpt. Just a second. Now, in one of my last videos, I said,
I bleed red, white, and blue, and the doctors are very concerned.
not that, decided to change shit up. That. So for this video, instead, I'll be doing a 3D sculpt. Ooh. Siri, digitize my voice.
That's right, Daisy Chain Creations is going digital.
Now for the sculpt, I'll be using Blender, which is a free open source 3D sculpting, VFX, animating software. It's truly an incredible piece of work. Really, the only thing it can't do is make my dad tell me he's proud of me. So similar to analog sculpting, which is also known as sculpting, with digital sculpting, I start with a rough blocky form and then it's a long process of pulling, poking, twisting, bop it, until it starts to resemble a rough form. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to use Blender in this video. I'm still very new to this, but if you're keen on seeing more, please let me know. I finished off the rough head shape with some ears before I started on the detailing. So it's at this point where I found that I spent most of my time with the detailing of all of his curves and deep crevices. With the face all detailed, it was just time to add on a signature goatee and spiky hairdo. And I think it was at this point that it all started coming together. Now with the face all done, and to make up for the lack of peepers, and of course the jury is still out if Guy Fieri actually has functioning eyes anyway, it was time to make a sick pair of Von Zipper sunglasses. This, I simply found a reference photo and just traced the edges of the frames. With the face all completed, it was time to build that bod. Now because it's a monster arising out of the depths, I'm not doing a full body, rather just from mid-calf upwards. I started with a rectangle to make up the torso and a couple spheres making up the shoulders with some cylinders for the arms and the legs. I remeshed the build to bring out some of the finer details and moved into sculpting mode. I started by smoothing down the areas between the shapes to get more of a Gumby-like body, before pulling out some more definition. Now of course, if you know anything about me, I like my coffee black and unrealistic body expectations on otherworldly creatures. As for the hands, I added a cube and some cylinders to make up the fingers, before sculpting the fingers into almost stalactite points. Finally, I added some details like striations to the muscles in the chest and the shoulders. With the body all done, I blended in his head and started on the finishing details. For the finer details, I downloaded Blender Kit, which is a free add-on which has textures like skin pores, hair and horns. By the way, all the software related to the 3D sculpting in this video is free, so the barrier for entry for things like this is very low, it's just a very steep learning curve. So at the moment, I currently don't have a 3D printer, so I outsourced this to somebody on Etsy, and from what they told me, this was printed on the Elegoo Saturn 4 Ultra. That was pretty cool, right? And the print had a lot more definition than what I expected. For those interested in a copy of the STL file, please hit me up, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. After a quick clean of the spruces and some of the edges, I applied some Mod Podge to the glass frames to build up more of that lens. While the Mod Podge was setting, let's get started on the base. I cut down some foam with a hot wire cutter to create the lakeshore. After this, I used a rock for some texturing and a quick spray from a butane torch just to smooth out any edges, before gluing everything in place. I found a small piece of the resin print supports, which was the perfect scale that I wanted to make my unsuspecting fisherman. With the Mod Podge dried and glass lenses filled in, Guy was given a black base coat before I started work on my miniature fisherman. Now, if you allow me to be even more self-indulgent, enjoy watching the craft and let's listen to the tale of how we ended up in this scene. It was a wet, flapping thud coming from the bottom of my boat that woke me from my slumber. What the? A rainbow trout, a good 50 centimeters long? Its translucent green and black speckles glimmered in the moonlight. Jesus, what time is it? I looked over at my phone. No missed calls, and 2 a.m. Mary, my wife, would rather I sleep on off in the back of the truck than drive home, so she must have figured I'd be home in the morning. I managed to paddle back to the lake's edge, the mild pressure of a hangover making itself known to me. And then I saw it. The lake shore was littered with the shining bodies of hundreds of fish. I landed on shore, dragging the boat through the sand and pebbles, kicking a few fish with my feet. Their glossy black eyes stared at the stars. And then I heard it. I spun around to the sound of something heavy shifting beneath the water. Not a ripple, but a deep, otherworldly thrumming. And then nothing. It was as if the lake inhaled and forgot how to exhale. Silence, save for the terminal flaps of the fish at my feet. Through the black water, 2 glowing eyes stared up at me. Ancient, impossibly deep, and full of silent understanding. They weren't human, nor anything I've ever seen before. Then, it arose. A gurgle of bubbles rose to the surface, followed by the deep, resonating voice of something older than Earth itself. It stood 10, 12 meters tall, impossibly tall for something of this world. I couldn't get a good look at it. Moonlight danced off its scales and horns, its eyes glassy and reflective, and its hair a layer of spines and spikes. No sooner had it unveiled itself to the world before it disappeared. I still fish at that lake. Don't eat from there though. The fish I took home that night, it was as if the life had been sucked out of these fish. Ever since that day, it was like the contrast was dialed down, that the very essence was pulled from these waters. Everything just tasted, well, not bad, but I don't know, just less? I know, it sounds strange. The funny thing is, to this day, I still think back to the banks of the lake, but these fish that chose to beach themselves, that chose certain death over whatever it was in those waters. And frankly, I don't blame them. I hope you enjoyed that. To quickly recap, I sculpted a mini fisherman out of cosplay, and I finished off the base with layers of sand, basalt and pebbles, locked in with some watered down glue. With everyone glued into place and base coated black, it was time for the paint job. For this one, I'm going to be doing some OSL. This, of course, being short for Object Source Lighting for those in the biz. Biz, of course, being short for the sound that a New Zealand bee makes. The idea of OSL is that we create the colour and shade with the paints. So this is normally achieved by finding a source of light and ensuring that the highlights are coming from that direction. To give more of the lake monster vibes, I applied a very thin green oil wash, which gives the paint job just a kiss of green without throwing off the paint too much. The same applied for the fisherman. I did a flesh wash over the skin and a black wash over his jacket and pants. Sensing that the scene was lacking a little bit, I made a quick little fisherman's boat out of balsa wood. With the boat completed and base coated black, I did a quick OSL paint job. After this, I did a brown oil wash just to give it more of that woody tone. With the scene all finalised and painted, I tacked down some acrylic sheets to the edge in anticipation for the resin pour. Now for the lake pour. So I used a 2-to-1 epoxy cast with a few drops of black pigment just to make the waters dark. Once this was poured in, 24 hours later, I snapped off the sheets and she was all set. I was actually really stoked that there was just enough opacity with the pigments that some of the OSL paint was coming through the water. After a quick tidy up on the edges just with a blade, it was time to start to add the waves. This was super simple and super effective. It was just simply layers of gloss Mod Podge and spray it out with an airbrush. Once it had all set and dried, we were left with this very subtle sort of rippling to the top of the resin. Now, as if I hadn't inhaled enough resin fumes already, I squirted on a quick blob of UV resin just to get the glasses nice and reflective. To finish off, I lined the edges of the diorama with some black painted styrene sheet, and I called this one done. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe. I'm doing things a little bit differently now, and I'd love to get some feedback. Anything really. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next build.